Hi there. Welcome to the From Lab to Launch podcast by Qualio, where we share inspiring stories from the people on the front lines of life sciences. Tune in and leave inspired to bring your life-saving products to the world.
Thanks for joining us on From Lab to Launch today. I'm Meg from Qualio, and it's my pleasure to be your host and introduce you to the movers and shakers of modern life sciences. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and we'd love it if you could give us a review on Apple or Spotify. If you want to be on the show, please see the application link in the show notes. Today, we're talking to Ilya Burkov, the Global Head of Healthcare and Life Sciences Growth at Nebius AI. Nebius AI's goal is simple: to provide the cloud infrastructure that will be the groundwork of the AI revolution we can all see happening in front of us. Nebius' suite of tools helps life science companies gather data and then train, fine tune, and launch their AI models into the real world. Ilya's role is to oversee and drive the adoption of this cloud AI technology within the life science and healthcare sectors. So I'm sure we're going to have plenty to talk about today. Let's bring him in. Welcome, Ilya.
Hi, Meg. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, I am so excited to talk to you today. It sounds like your mission is similar to ours and something very close to our hearts here at Qualio, harnessing technology and particularly AI to help life sciences companies do better work and so they support their patients with new outcomes. What inspired you to join Nebius and start that work?
Absolutely. Well, the mission really resonates with me as well because at the end of the day, it's all about enabling better outcomes for patients by using better tools for scientists. And what inspired me to join Nebius was an opportunity to address the gap, accelerate this. And I keep seeing this in the industry. There's an incredible promise of AI applications in life science, in healthcare, but running on infrastructure that wasn't always built for the complexity, the scale, and the regulatory demands of the space. The internet wasn't really built for being this universal thing. Same with AI. I've worked with teams trying to train massive models, manage sensitive data, and move very fast without compromising on things like compliance. And I realized that for all the innovation that's happening in drug discovery, genomics, multiomics, the underlying tech stack was often the thing that was holding back a lot of the scientists and the researchers. And at Nebius, we're building a kind of cloud native AI first platform that tends to remove a lot of these bottlenecks that we see so that a scientist and companies that want to focus on the science and the patients can really do that. And that's what drives me, creating this, foundation that makes real breakthroughs possible in our lifetimes and within the work that somebody's working on.
Great. Um, how was AI going to deliver in with that cloud offering and creating these groundbreaking changes that so many are predicting? Can you give me a little crystal ball vision of what that looks like in the near future?
Absolutely. I mean, AI is one of those things that can be applied to almost anything. And, we're in healthcare and life science. The problem is simple, but quite massive. Innovation is slow, it's expensive and bogged down by very clunky infrastructure. So take example, drug discovery. It can take decades and billions of dollars to bring a new a new medicine to market. And why? Because researchers are wrestling with mountains of data, limited computes, very costly infrastructure, and so on. Um, what we want to do is be able to, scalably, but also very efficiently accelerate this. And what we want to make sure that is done is that the speed that is at which this research is being done is as soon as possible. So when drug discovery companies or people doing a lot of work on getting a drug to market, we want to reduce that time frame that it takes them to get a drug to market. We want to prioritize on the quality of what they're working on rather than having them bogged down into the research and the step-by-step work that they're doing.
Right? What do you think our biggest obstacles are between us and this exciting world of AI-powered life science?
Oh, I'd say one of the biggest challenges within this and one of the biggest obstacles is navigating through the complexity of the deep tech in life science. Biotech companies are increasingly more and more sophisticated scientifically, but they often don't have the infrastructure expertise. So on the other side, the cloud and AI engineers are not really up to the understanding of the science and biological information. So all the nuances of biological data, the clinical workflows, or regulatory constraints, and bridging that gap takes time. It takes trust and it takes a lot of translation. So helping each side understand that is not just the what, but also the why is very important. And what I've learned is that real progress happens when we stop thinking in terms of products and start thinking in terms of kind of outcomes. And when we align on that problem, you get a much faster, safer, and deliverable drug development. But in this example, the solutions come into focus much faster. And I guess that's one of the biggest challenges.
Right? And in your particular role, what has been your biggest challenge and what have you learned from it so far?
That I think no two startups use AI the same way. It's so fundamentally different, even though the principles are the same. The GPUs might be the same, and we work with NVIDIA quite closely on a lot of the things, but the applications and how the science is applied is very unique. And the challenge that comes with it is you're creating an infrastructure that fundamentally is the same in the engineering. But when it comes to the science and when it comes to the applications, it's very different. So getting the two balances well has been the biggest challenge. Making sure that teams have access to the latest and greatest in terms of hardware to do the incredible work that they're doing and the discovery that they're doing.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. What emerging trends or technologies in life science tech excite you the most, and how do Nebius's tools position your customers to lead in these efforts?
Yeah, that's a great one. One of the most exciting trends that we've seen in the rise of a lot of the multimodal foundation models or AI systems that can really learn and reason across very diverse data sets. So you're talking about genomics, imaging, clinical records, chemistry, and beyond. These models, they have the potential to unify a lot of the pipelines and generate insights that weren't possible before, perhaps overlooked by an individual or having biases that an AI agent or the technology and the tools don't have. Another is AI-driven lab optimization, so machines that learn, not just to analyze results, but actively guide experimentation in real time. It turns lab into, continuous learning systems. We're also seeing growing momentum in federated learning, especially in clinical settings where data sensitivity is going hand in hand with collaboration. There's groups working all over the world with teams spaced out everywhere. And at Nebius, we're building infrastructure that's purpose built for these exact scenarios. So high performance GPUs, the latest and greatest secure data environments and scale. So, when you're looking at ease of scaling up and down, that is not something that is typically a simple thing to do with a hyperscaler. But our platform gives the teams the flexibility to experiment and really scale up and down as they need to give that flexibility. And keep these technologies accelerating, and these aren't future technologies. All of this is already here, and with the right foundation, I think that it can really become competitive advantage for a lot of teams.
Great. Thanks for sharing those insights into the future for us. Since we're a quality management company, I always like to ask, where does life science quality and compliance fit into the shift that Nebius brings to help drive improvement?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fundamental. So quality and compliance are absolutely central to the shift we're driving because in life science, speed is important, but speed without trust is meaningless. So as AI and cloud native tools become much more embedded in research and development, and a lot of the work that's being done, we need to make sure that everything is traceable, it's auditable, it's reproducible, and the data that teams are working on and working with are not just optimizing performance, but building and built from compliance in mind. Whether it's enabling, aligned pipelines or supporting data residency laws. Every country has their own requirements. In the US, there's HIPAA and other certifications that are essential. In Europe, there are various AI acts and ISO certifications that are pretty much demanded and required. Our infrastructure is designed to make sure that ultimately the innovation and quality aren't opposing forces. They're partnering together with compliance and with the regulatory requirements. I think that we need to make sure that teams are helped to move faster and stay compliant. And at Nebius, they are the data owners. We don't own the information. We don't own the IP. We provide them with the infrastructure that they need to do the work that they require. But it's their work ultimately.
Mhm. Great. Yeah, thanks for that. Understand that very well.
Mhm.
What is your message to those in the life science world that might be skeptical about AI and new technologies?
Yeah.
Because I
So
hear a fair amount of it out there.
yeah.
Still a lot of
So
skepticism.
absolutely. Skepticism is healthy, especially in life science, where the stakes are quite high and patient safety is not really something you can negotiate. My message to those who are cautious about AI is you don't have to believe in the hype, but look at the results. So AI isn't about to replace scientists or clinicians or it's not about cutting corners. It's basically about being an additional resource, an additional tool, an additional colleague to add to the human expertise that we already have. And it's about helping researchers process very complicated data much faster. It's designed to create much smarter trials, to reduce the risks of very costly failures, and really assist an industry which is very stretched in terms of people. And when you look in a hospital um, environment, for example, you've got experts who are missing a fracture on an X-ray that they would typically never miss because they are very tired or they have too many X-rays to look at in a particular 30-minute period, and they don't have the enough personnel to do that. So we're reducing human error with a lot of these tools that can say, have a look here. Have you checked this line? Does it not look like a fracture to you? It's an assistant rather than a decision maker. And it's already working. We're seeing real world examples of AI shortening timelines, improving a lot of target validations, and increasing drug design. You don't need to adopt every new tool overnight, but ignoring the shift means that you're missing out on real opportunities to improve how we discover, how we develop, and really deliver new therapies. And the key is to engage very critically. I'd say partner very wisely and implement responsibly. I know that there's a lot of skepticism. It's not just about chasing trends. It's about building a much more efficient, more responsive, and ultimately a very human-centered future for healthcare. Um, I've been asked by some people who say, do you think that this is going to replace, AI is going to replace a radiologist? And I would like to reverse that and say, AI is not going to replace the radiologist, but AI is going to replace the radiologist who doesn't use AI. So it's somebody who is familiar with how to use the tools, how to be comfortable with what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, with the tools they have at hand. I hope that answers it.
Yeah, that was great perspective there. I saw in your background that you have a PhD in medicine, and I was wondering how that shaped your approach to this role you have at Nebius.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we look at um, the the background of an individual, and my PhD in medicine gave me a very deep appreciation for the complexity of human biology, and just how hard it is to move from a scientific insight into a real world therapeutic impact. Um, Technology is quick to change, but very difficult to adopt.
Mhm.
A lot of technologies might sound great on paper, but getting that into a clinician's hand and making sure that they are using it can take a while. And what I've learned since then is that technology, especially AI, can help bridge the gap. But only if it's grounded on the realities of what they're doing and what they're working on. It has to be relevant to their particular topic. You can't just I guess the example, the analogy I use is you cannot have the same microchip in all the appliances that you use at home. So we have a chip in our dishwasher. We have a chip in our TV. We have a chip in everything these days. And this CPU is very different depending on the device. And so I would say that combining this kind of medical lens with a tech-driven approach specific for that particular use case is really key. And I'm always asking, how can a particular model support clinical relevance? How can infrastructure respect the regulatory constraints of a patient, or how can we, you know, empower researchers and not replace them with AI? Um, I've always been in this forefront of the mix of medicine, life science, and technology. And I'd say that my that mindset really helps ensure what we build at Nebius isn't just powerful, but it's practical. And I think that's the insights I bring. It's that being that middle person between the healthcare teams, the engineering teams, the growth teams, and the science that it involves. So that's how I position myself and how I see myself.
Oh, great for that. That's so important to have in a company when you're in life sciences to be able to bridge that world and speak those two languages.
Yeah, and I'd say that's quite unique for Nebius compared to a lot of the other companies working with GPUs and even hyperscalers to an extent.
Yeah. Well, you are a man of complexity and appreciation for complexity. What lessons have you learned from your journey at Nebius that you'd pass on to fellow innovators and entrepreneurs?
Abs- Absolutely. So, I guess one of the biggest lessons from my journey at Nebius is that technology alone isn't enough. So it's how you apply it that matters. And you can get GPUs from anywhere these days, but how they are configured, how they are presented, and what team you're working with is what matters. We've worked with some incredible biotech and pharma teams who don't just need fast GPUs or scalable storage. They need an infrastructure that truly understands the challenges, all of the data complexities that they're involved in, and they're limited in time. They have enormous stakes at hand because most of the teams are working with a finite budget, and if they mess it up, they cannot repeat it. So they need to make sure that it's right the first time. They cannot afford to make mistakes. And another key lesson is the importance of aligning between the technology and the science. And most successful projects that we've been involved in and that we've seen happen, when we bring AI engineers that dominate and have that domain expertise to the same table very early on. And we're able to provide a lot of the technical support needed to get the most out of a GPU, the most out of the technology and infrastructure that comes with, you know, by demand. Speaking each other's languages and building together. And we typically synchronize with the technical team from the startup or the company that we're working with and have that. But not only those combination, but we need to move fast and validate everything. So in life science, speed is very important, but it needs to be paired with quality, transparency, and trust. So my advice, as always, is embrace the innovation, but do it in a way that's grounded in your mission. Driven by a lot of the outcomes and built to last. Don't just look at where you can get a cheaper GPU and save 20 cents per hour. Look at the full package. See the team that you're working with. See the group that you're working with. What expertise do they have in-house? And it's not just about cutting corners and saving the costs. It's about trying to get the technology done right the first time so that you can actually do and concentrate on advancing the next level and the next set of work that you're doing. That's what we try to do every day at Nebius and the kind of groups that we work with.
Great. Thank you for that. I think there's a lot of good lessons to glean there. Thank you. And our last question is more of a fun one we like to end on. If we ran into you at a bookstore or at your local library, in what section would we find you?
Oh, that's a fun one. I'd say that you'd probably be catching me bouncing between three sections.
Uh,
So first, the tech and science aisle. Geeking out over some books on AI or biotech, genomics, that kind of, think The Gene by I think it was Siddhartha Makaraje is an Indian, very interesting author, or Super Intelligence by Nick Bostrom. Incredible work that they're working on. Then I'd sneak over to the business section for some leadership reads, because small challenges drive really big impacts in healthcare innovation. So I'd be bouncing between those sections, and I'll admit that the other kind of interesting topic that I always like to do is flipping through some autobiographies somewhere in the corner.
yeah,
I love to read about the achievements and reasons for success of great women and men in tech and outside of tech, because there's a lot that you can learn and mistakes that you can avoid making yourself, I think.
yeah. Always nice to learn from someone else's mistakes rather than repeating them yourself. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Where can our listeners go to learn more about yourself and Nebius?
Yeah, I'd start off with our website, so nebius.com. Have a look there. We've got a separate section on life science and healthcare. All of the work that we're doing there, there's lovely case studies where people can understand what we're doing in drug discovery and quantum chemistry and various other genomics and genetics information. There's some case studies on imaging analysis that have been done. I'd start there, and always feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if there's something you want to discuss.
Great. Well, we'll get those links posted in the show notes. Thank you so much, Ilya, for joining us today.
Thanks for your time, Meg.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of From Lab to Launch, brought to you by Qualio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and give the show a positive review. It really helps us out. For more information about Qualio, our guest today, or to be a guest on a future episode, please refer to the show notes. Until next time.